Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today. It does not matter that it's my birthday because Cyberpunk 2077 news is dropping and we all know that takes priority. Yes, that's me stuffing my birthday into the opening message so you can shower me with happy birthday comments, okay? I need it. I'm just kidding, but anyway, I wanted to make sure I got on top of this news because it's really exciting. The Witcher 3 really built a pedigree based off not only a fantastic base game, but also the post-launch support really set a positive standard for our industry where we saw weeks of free DLC, including quests, new locations, bounties, and then on top of that, it received meaty story expansions, most notably being The Witcher 3 Blood and Wine, which quickly turned into a lot of folks' favorite DLC of all time. So suffice to say, a lot of people were crossing their fingers that CD Projekt Red would carry the same practices and values over into Cyberpunk 2077. I mean, you see the complete edition of Witcher 3 jumping off the shelves at $20 on Steam, and you're like, holy crap, I'm like stealing from CD Projekt Red. Or when you see The Witcher 3 on Switch being the complete edition, not just the base game, but including all the DLC, it's phenomenal value no matter where you look. So naturally, that's something we want to see in Cyberpunk 2077, and rest assured, it seems that very much is the case based off this information coming from GameRant.com, alongside a discussion about multiple endings. So let's get into it. After such a long stretch of time with no new info, this E3 saw CD Projekt Red let fans get a proper insight into its upcoming RPG, Cyberpunk 2077. And ever since its fancy new trailer shown during Microsoft's presentation, more and more details have gradually been made known. We now know that the game will contain multiple endings, and recently UI coordinator Alvin Liu opened up about the studio's plans for future expansions. Let's start off with the multiple endings. In an interview at E3 2019 with YouTuber Young Yeah, former guest on the Ham Radio podcast twice by the way, Cyberpunk 2077's quest director Mateusz Tomaszkiewicz, apologize if I pronounced that wrong, confirmed that the game will have multiple endings, a fact that shouldn't be surprising to longtime fans of CD Projekt Red. Tomaszkiewicz stopped short of revealing exactly how many endings players could find or if it's going to be more than the 3 The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt offered players. I remember The Witcher 3, I won't spoil it, but it had one of the saddest bad endings. It was just downright depressing. I remember it like left me in my feels when I watched it. So that's something that I hope we also see carry over in the terms of tone, but this is the way multiple endings has started to be handled by these big companies. We see lots of branching reactions throughout the story that don't determine your ending ultimately. It's just constantly giving you that feeling of control, freedom along the way. And then there are certain major decisions that do influence you on those paths to those set of 3 to 4 endings. We saw a kind of similar thing in actually Vampire, one of my top 3 games of last year and one of my favorite RPGs of this generation, where there were 4 endings there and it really just depended on how many people you killed. So that was a big complaint for a lot of folks. They thought it would be more impactful if it was about who you killed, whether it was just another civilian or if it was a major character in the story, because the game also in its own right gave you a lot of freedom. Now, I do hope that CD Projekt Red has that under consideration. I imagine they do, but when you see a small ending count, even for something like The Witcher 3, it still can allow a lot of value in your choices because of the way the game reacts to you step by step, which we've seen in the gameplay demos. And if that carries throughout the entire game, I think we'll be really surprised with what this game has to offer, even if there's only 3 separate conclusions, for example. Now back to post-launch content. In an exclusive interview with Prima Games, Liu explained that CD Projekt Red will be handling future DLC very similarly to how it did expansions with The Witcher 3. We want to make sure everything's complete, but we also want to build open worlds. I know when I was playing The Witcher 3 and I finished everything, I still want to know what everyone was up to. I think we're going to have opportunities like that as well for Cyberpunk 2077. Liu was also quick to reassure fans that the expansions won't be cut from the main game and that CD Projekt Red intends to release a whole complete package. We're not withholding content, we're not withholding a story for the future to try to, monetize it or sell it in pieces or anything like that. You're going to get the whole full value game here. When asked about the main narrative, Liu promised that fans can look forward to a very satisfying story arc and the ending will be very rewarding. Now, obviously, as the article mentions, and I'll say it myself, considering how well received the writing for the Witcher games were, Cyberpunk 2077's story is assuredly in safe hands. And CD Projekt Red is a company that's very clearly realizing what position they are in. And that's very important to note in this discussion because a lot of companies, you know, they get lightning in a bottle and then they try to run away with it. But CD Projekt Red's realized, okay, the reason people love us is because we gave them exactly what they want. Hundreds of hours of content, all of it valuable, reactionary choice and consequence. In the case of The Witcher 3, we'll go with okay to solid combat. I thought that was the weakest part of the game, but overall, it did what an RPG should do, and it's a term that's become less and less valuable as time goes on in our games industry, and I think CD Projekt Red raised it up to where it personally should be in many ways. Now, that doesn't change that I think Divinity Original Sin 2 is the best RPG of this generation. Sorry, Witcher fans, but I digress. What's important to note here is that they realize why people like them and they're doing what they need to maintain that, which means not breaking up the story into separate pieces, not trying to sell it to us bit by bit, doing a games as a service and saying, you'll find out part of the story here, and as the world expands, you'll learn more. So buy into our incomplete story. Nothing about that is exciting nowadays. Nothing. I'm sorry, but I cannot get remotely hyped about that. So this is why people really get on the CD Projekt Red bandwagon. And I know sometimes it can get a little bit obnoxious. I've made a video about it in the past saying that we need to be careful of raising them on so high of a pedestal to the point where we see stuff coming up like crunch stories about CD Projekt Red that don't get as much attention as stuff like I'm covering here today. It's a well-known fact, but still, it's exciting. They are taking the correct path with this game, and it does make me a lot more excited knowing that they have similar values and all that money that they got through The Witcher 3 seems to have not changed anything. That's the other thing, ladies and gentlemen. I think another reason folks are really excited based off these types of interviews and information is because when we see The Witcher 3 and then Cyberpunk 2077, it kind of arises that conflict that happened where there was The Witcher 3 versus Fallout 4. Now, the reason I bring that up is because in the case of Fallout 4, people were very excited for that game, and when they played it, it felt like all the money Bethesda as a whole had made did not get repurposed into this extremely large project. Obviously, it was not a cheap game to make, but it felt like in many ways a lower budget game compared to where we see The Witcher 3 doing everything right in a lot of people's opinion, and then we carry it over to Cyberpunk where it looks like they've taken all that money that they've made from The Witcher 3 and properly repurposed it into a new project to bring it to grander heights. It's what you expect from a company who just set the bar high and wants to do it once more. And so that's another reason people are excited, is because we see what happens with CD Projekt Red when they make a lot of money, and we see those values carrying over, and then we see the gameplay, we hear the reactions of people seeing the demo, and we'll see for ourselves in just a couple of months. It's ridiculously exciting. But it also gives you hope in this AAA realm of games where every single studio wants to suck all of the cash out of your wallet without giving you anything of substance. That's the other thing. We like tangible stuff. We're gamers. There's a reason why physical media hasn't died out yet. It's because we like to hold on to things. We like to know we're getting something when we spend our money, like most human beings. I also noted that this article had mentioned that when they finished The Witcher 3, they wanted to go back, revisit the world, and see what other characters were up to. Now, we saw in the most recent cinematic trailer that debuted at the Microsoft E3 2019 press conference that Jackie, who was supposedly like your best friend in the initial gameplay reveal, could die. So what I think is going to happen when it comes to expansions is it may not include characters that could or couldn't be killed off, because how does that work when you carry it into the DLC? Let's say Jackie's supposed to be a major part of this DLC that's coming out, but he died in your playthrough. Can you still access it as its own separate thing? Like, what happens at that point in time? That's a gigantic question mark, and something I think is worth discussing, because you want to know, are they creating entirely new characters solely for this DLC? Are they going to lean on the laurels of past characters and develop them a little bit more? I think they'll probably take the route of developing new characters so that's entirely free from the main game, but I think when he means returning and seeing what everyone's up to, I think he means Night City itself, because Night City is almost this personality. If any of the discussion happening about it currently is something to go off of. All in all, though, I'm very happy to see they're working on finishing the game now, then doing post-launch support later. That's probably the most important thing to note out of all of these quotes, is that they are going to finish the base game, and it's smart, because what happens is that a lot of these games nowadays don't make me feel like I've finished anything, and part of my satisfaction, and this is subjective in gaming, is knowing I beat something and it's done. Even if I know DLC is coming, in the case of Cyberpunk, I'd like to beat it, see it all through, and then hear about post-launch support. There's something in my brain that sometimes gets turned off when I'm in the middle of a playthrough and the company's like, but wait, there's more. It's like, bro, I'm not even done with the freaking base game. Let me finish that, and then we'll talk DLC. So I like the idea currently that it seems like we're gonna finish the base game, then talk DLC. Now, if they give us a roadmap like in October, we'll give you one story expansion, and in March of 2021, we'll give you a story expansion 2, and that's all we get, fine. Because it doesn't put me on, I feel like, a clock, or I know something else is coming that's a part of this overall big story. It just lets me know, hey, there's content on the way. That's one of my biggest things that I personally need to mention, because I don't know how many of you out there really share that sentiment, but anyway, bang for your buck is good, multiple endings is good, post-launch content support is great to hear about in the terms of the way they are speaking. It's not a way that's gonna take all your cash, and it's gonna try to make it worth your money, which I think all of us can really appreciate. Anyway, there's not much else to go on, so I will conclude the video here. And naturally, as always, I want to hear from you, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think about the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news? Are you excited for what CD Projekt Red is doing? Do you think they're lying, maybe? You know, because they say all the right things, but shall they do? Well, previous products have shown us they will do just that. But do you trust them this time around? Let me know in the comments down below. Ladies and gentlemen, please fire away. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that, as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.